Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Deja and today I'm going to be drawing some of the Court of Thorns and Roses characters as well as a tarot card of the Tea by the Suriel. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just get started on Freya. I am absolutely obsessed with this girl. She's not my favorite character. I'm not going to lie to you. My favorite character is definitely 1000% Nesta. After Silver Flames, there was just no going back for me, frankly. The relationship Nesta has with the House of Wind is something that I aspire to have one day. But until then, I will simply draw these characters in my book and live vicariously through them. Now, starting off with Freya, this is actually one of the first times, I'm not going to say it's the first time, but this is one of the first times that I am working with my King Art portrait markers. So I'm still getting the hang of it. Right now, I start, of course, with the lighter colors, because that's what I've been told to do, and then build up with the darker colors. I'm just looking back and forth between my reference image to figure out where those shadows are supposed to be laid down, and of course, considering like the value of the colors that I'm using, so how dark or light they are, and then from there, taking a little bit of artistic license to just create the shapes I think I'm seeing. I'm not gonna lie, guys, using alcohol markers has probably been the most trust the process art material I've ever used. I might be lying when I say that, but I guess just because I've painted so much at this point, I truly do trust the process. But when it comes to alcohol markers, I'm still looking for the vision as I'm creating the vision. So that's a little bit complicated for me sometimes, but again, it's just about trusting it and moving forward. So far I think that she's looking kind of good without all the color pencils on top of it and just like rendering the rest of the colors and shadows in her face. I think that so far it's coming out pretty well. I'll admit that the hair was a little bit more difficult for me to kind of map out just because I don't do hair very often, and when I do, it's never really been curly hair. So this was a nice little challenge for me to just work through with different colors and create the shapes of curls through color alone without any real line work. So here I'm using this like medium brown color that does dry a little bit lighter, but then I go ahead and switch into this darker brown, still not the darkest, but I'm just touching on every edge where the light brown is and just kind of brushing it out from there. Now, it is a little bit of looking at my reference, but it's also a little bit of just an understanding of how light works against hair. I like to consider where the hair is kind of more bouncy and curly, that's where the light is going to hit the hair more. So you want to be sure to show that light hitting the hair by using lighter colors in that area. I make sure to definitely add more color later using a color pencil, but for now I'm starting off on the face and just laying down all the different shadows I see there. Now you'll notice when I lay down my shadows that I'm never using grays or blacks or anything like that. I do consider the value of the color, or so like how dark it is, but that's all I'm considering here. At the end of the day, I have a palette that I like to work with, and purples are always my shadow color. I always want to work with something a little bit more vibrant, but still gets the message across that this is a darker plane on the face or whatever it is that I'm working with. So I really love to work with different colors and different values, and I know I've been saying it, but I really do plan on putting out my color theory video very, very soon, where I just describe how I use colors and why I pick the colors I pick. So I'm super excited for that because I know you guys have been asking, but for now I'll try to break it down as best I can with what's in front of me. Okay, and I am done with Freya and honestly love the way she looks. I definitely know going forward I'm going to be working on hair a little bit more and just practicing that a bit, but for the most part I am happy with how it came out. I know in the book they describe her as having like golden brown hair. So this is my best attempt at golden brown this time, but I do plan on getting her in again in my sketchbook after this first time trying it out. So we'll see how it comes out next time. So if you have any recommendations or tips from people who have read the book more recently, please let me know and help me out because I do plan on doing a reread and around Christmas time, around November time. I'm planning it out so that I'm reading Frost and Starlight around Christmas time. So sometime in November I'll be restarting, but if you have any tips for me on how to make it more realistic to their characters, please comment below, because there's nothing more important to me than making sure I do these girlies justice. So that being said, I do end up changing the color of her dress to navy blue in a few minutes, because the green was just giving autumn court in a way I didn't want. Not that there's anything wrong with the autumn court, but my girl's not from it, so we had to change that up. Moving back to Nesta, we've already laid down all the alcohol marker on her skin. I'm really loving the pinks I've kind of thrown into this one in comparison to the last one. But at this point, I am actually working on the hair and just trying to get this right. This was pretty difficult for me, if I'm being honest with you, just because I've never worked on braids before. The closest I've come is like the bread that I worked on one of my Kiki layouts, but otherwise this was completely new to me. So like I mentioned, I will definitely be practicing different hairstyles, but I also had a lot of fun working this through. I think a lot of the time people get very stressed by something they don't know how to do, to the point where they almost create this mental barrier that keeps them from wanting to do it more or learn about it more. Whereas for me, I feel like I've taken that and I've decided to just get excited about all the things I still don't know. Like, I'm still in the beginning of my art journey. Despite not being in the beginning of my art journey, I love when it feels that way. I love when something feels new and fresh, and I feel like there's still so much to learn, because I don't know, there's still so much life to live, and I can't know everything about art by now. I know for a fact I don't. So whenever something comes up that I don't know, I choose to, I don't know, take it as a good opportunity and see it in a positive light, because I don't ever want anything to stop me from doing art. And if I let myself get too self-conscious, that's exactly what's gonna happen. So at this point, it's just about doing what you gotta do to keep the art process happy and healthy more than anything. Okay. Anyways, we're going to move in to the braids. So I'm using a variation of darker and lighter browns to kind of show where the highlights are in the braid and where the darkest parts of her roots are, and then adding in touches of yellow to try to bring it back to that golden brown. I feel like I just made it way too dark and it wasn't accurate to the actual character. But overall, I do think that the hair came out very well. Whether it's very Nesta, the braids are, the color, possibly not so much. But let's go ahead and let's get that black dress on her, because you know that's girly's fit. I did start with just this base layer of black, but then decided to go back on in and add some purple on top of it. I really wanted it to give like a expensive velvety kind of look. And then from there, I'm using my Artix white gel pen to just put a little life in her eyes, and I'm obsessed with her. But let's go ahead and move on to Miss Elain, who I have some hot topic feelings on. Is it just me, or is Elain absolutely useless? For those of you who are Elain stans, I do semi-apologize to you, but let's face it, your family was starving, poor, you know, don't have much going for them, and you're planting flowers when you could be planting corn or squash or anything that could be useful and helpful instead of just mooching on your sister. Strong feelings. I have strong feelings on this one, and I'm pretty positive no one could tell me otherwise, but you can try. I am hoping and praying that she becomes super useful in her next book. I'm committed to the idea that I just must not know something about Elain, because why would Sarah make this like frail woman when she only makes really strong women characters? I don't know. I'm not about it. I don't like the way she she was so obsessed with that low life. It's just like girly pop. Anyways, I could talk about Elain, but I don't want to. I simply don't want to. Let's talk about the drawing instead. So at this point, I've layered down almost all of the alcohol markers. I'm just going to finish up this bow, and then from there, it is color pencil time. I am actually really happy with the color choices I made for Elain's hair, though. I feel like it actually depicts that golden brown that they're talking about in the book. And going forward, when I mean going forward, the next time I draw them, I will probably try to make it a little bit more towards Elain's hair color in this sketch, because it's given everything I need it to. But for now, we are going to go ahead and just layer up these purples to get those shadows in there. I do use two main types of purple. One leans a little bit more towards blue, and the other one leans a little bit more towards pink. So for those deeper shadows, I'm sure to use the darker blue one, versus shadows that might have some light touch in them, I'll use the pinkish purple. But for now, let's go ahead and let's just get this outline in. I love actually defining the eyes of all these characters because I just think it absolutely changes the entire look of everything. The way everything just kind of comes together once you get those lashes on, very much like real life. But at this point, we do have to kind of finish this up. So I'm just going to color in the hair. This is a little easier for me. It's straight hair. It's not curly. You add some shadows at the top, at the bottom. You put a medium color in the middle and the absolute lightest somewhere in between that medium color. It makes sense. It's a formula that has always worked for me. So I need to find that formula for curly hair as well, especially as a curly hair girly. What am I doing out here? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I just made the Archon sisters. Archeon? I don't know. I make up the way things are pronounced in my head when it comes to fantasy books. But I am now moving on to the suriel tea. I was really back and forth about what I wanted this second page to be. I considered adding the Bat Boys. I considered doing like a bigger portrait of Reese? Somebody tell me how they pronounce it. I like to imagine it as Riz sometimes. But I know it's probably Reese as in Reese's Puffs or Reese as in Resand, I bet. I'm a girl who needs to listen to the audiobook. What could I say? Anyways, I had decided to go with the suriel just because I thought it would be really cool to get like a tarot card looking page in my book. And I was very, very, very excited to be able to use my gold Artix gel marker because I haven't really had an opportunity to use it. And what better place than a tarot card? So at this point, I'm just laying down some alcohol markers. This dark violet purple color is actually from my Ohuhu set because the portrait markers obviously don't have dark purple. But at this point, I'm just getting down all the basic colors. I'm not gonna lie to you. It looks pretty crazy when all the basic colors are down first. But once you do just add those color pencils on top and really render all of those shadows and highlighted areas of the teacup and of the skeleton hand, I knew it would come together. I was positive it would. And I just had to trust the process. So I start off again with these shadow colors. I'm using that pinkish purple to just lay down the shadow at the bottom of the cup as well as in the divots of the actual teacup. And then from there, I go ahead and add a base layer of peach and then some pops of orange throughout just to make the color a little bit more dynamic. And lastly, I do decide to use this beige color pencil almost as my blending pencil. So I'm going on top of the purple, going on top of the orange, and all of that stuff to create the look that you see now. As I work on the hand, I'm trying to consider how the shadows would play out on an actual skeleton, which is difficult because obviously it's not like I have a skeleton just lying around to reference, but I just kind of think about the way that a bone is and where the light would be touching. So I'm trying to imagine based on the teacup that the light is coming from in front of them. So the tops of these bones should be the lightest color and the in-between spaces is where the shadows should be, specifically between the two fingers. So when I'm creating this skull, I actually don't use too many colors. I use purple as the shadow, a second purple to do the darkest parts of the shadow, yellow to meet the purple, and then white in the dead center just to create that more dimensional look. When I use the white, I do try to keep it as precious as possible, and by that I mean I don't go overboard and just use white everywhere. I'm only using it in specific places where I imagine the light would touch the skeleton hand and be at its brightest. It's a little bit difficult not to just continue going and going because skeletons are white, but pause, give yourself a little bit of time, just a little bit of time away from what you're working on. Look at it later. If you still don't like it and want to add more of a specific color, do that for yourself. But always just challenge yourself to use less of like basic whites and blacks and grays. I think it's so important to just learn how to play with color and really enjoy your art process and just have fun creating. Okay, quick pause. How cute is the little tag for the Suriel Tico? Is it like the cutest? No, but the idea and the concept is super cute. Duh. I do end up working on it a little bit with that gold. I don't try to overwork any areas because I know I'll be outlining everything in gold. But this smoke is definitely something I wanted to make sure was really colorful before I added down some layers of white. Now, I'll admit, I know I just spoke about keeping white precious and not using it too much. The smoke is the place, or the only place that I had intended to use a lot of white, because I knew that using a white pencil wasn't going to eliminate the color underneath it. It was just going to make it a lighter, whiter version of that color. So it's not like I was trying to just get white down the same way I was with the skeleton hand. I'm trying to create the look of smoke and the way that smoke overlaps by using a variety of different whites and layering a variety of different whites. So I start off with just some color pencil and I do some lines in certain places. I really build up on the color in other places. And then from there, I choose to use a paint pen that I know isn't 100% opaque. And I really ended up liking the way it came out. My favorite part about it not being opaque was that I was allowed to decide how this was going to go. I could build up color where I wanted it to be built up, and I could slightly tap away that color with my finger in spaces that I wanted it to seem a little bit more translucent. Skipping on into the clouds, I always work on my clouds by doing a darker color at the bottom of the cloud and then having the top part of the color be the lightest part. I used yellow and some creams and peaches earlier, and now I'm just layering in that purple at the bottom and then going back in with my Artix gel pen just to crisp up those edges of the clouds and really show where the light is hitting them. Now, at this point, I'm not loving the darkness on the bottom of this tarot card. I thought I did. I started using a color pencil, but that did not eliminate the darkness like I wanted it to. So I did end up using a paint pen off camera, not on purpose. I just forgot to record. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and start my gold outline. This is what I have been waiting for this whole time. I'm so excited to see how this comes out. If I'm being real, I was a little bit nervous that the gold pen would ruin everything, but I thought it was so worth it, even if just for the lesson. But yeah, it was a super satisfying process with the way the gold ink just glides on the page. I'm not gonna lie, I'm really impressed by Artix's gel pens. At first, I wasn't sure how much I loved them, but after this project, the way they dispense the color, I will definitely be using these in more of my sketchbooks going forward. Now at this point, we are wrapping it up. I can't even believe that we're done with this sketch right now. I'm just writing out the letters, and then from there, I'm gonna put it in the sunlight and see how it looks. And guys, how cute is it? Every single time this page touches the sunlight, I feel so much happiness in my heart. I'm so glad I decided to go with the gold outline and think this layout was just such a huge success. I'm so happy with it, and I'm so excited to just open my book and see this now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.